Welcome to Podcast 83, a regular look at the news, stories, and trends related to Michigan's 83 counties from the Michigan Association of Counties. Brought to you in part by Comcast, bringing the power of the internet into Michigan homes and businesses. Now, here's your host, MAC Executive Director Stephen Currie.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining us at Podcast 83, the podcast put on by the Michigan Association of Counties. I hope everyone had a enjoyable week and enjoyed some warm weather. I don't know about anyone else, but I'm dragging a little bit this Monday. The snow was not very encouraging. I've had my mental health light on a lot today, trying to absorb as much vitamin D as possible. Deena, Meghann, how about you two?
Yeah, Saturday was a little bit of a tease. 60 degrees and beautiful and extremely muddy though. So that's not always a plus for this time of year. It's pretty dirty.
Especially if you have the animals you're letting in and out of the house, then it's even more challenging.
I can't tell you how much time I spent wiping off paws, dirty paws.
But it's got to come at some point, so I'd rather it sooner than later. At this point, it's March. I feel like we need warm weather.
I agree.
All right, well, we'll go ahead and get started because we want to be respectful of everyone's time. Just a reminder, if you could mute yourself, that'd be helpful. We do have a chat. We can accept questions in the chat at any time, and we'll be happy to answer them. Also, Comcast is our sponsor for this podcast, so we do appreciate their sponsorship going forward. So with that, let's get started. Meghann, we've been talking a lot about these mental health changes that are being proposed by the Senate Majority Leader. Why don't you give us a little update from last week on where we're at with those bills?
Yeah, thanks, Steve. So for a long time now, our members have been hearing about Senate Bills 597 and 598. They are a priority of the Senate Majority Leaders, and it really, shifts the public local mental health system that we have today into what would be managed by private insurers, our Medicaid health plans. I think last week we saw some new versions of those bills come forward. There was also a Senate Bill 714, which would be a supplemental bill that would fund some mental health programs. So that was about a $540 million investment in various mental health services, but all of that, or much of that spending is tied to whether those policy bills, our Senate Bills 597 and 598 become law. So that came out, I think it was Tuesday last week, and Wednesday we saw those bills placed on the general orders calendar, and a lot of conversation happening in the chamber about whether or not the votes are there to really move these forward. So MAC, our mental health, our partners in mental health, community mental health advocacy, and a lot of other groups were really talking to a lot of different senators on both sides of the aisle, voicing concerns with moving towards this type of system. Everyone from different labor organizations, the Michigan Catholic Conference, whole list of folks in opposition to this. And so we didn't see those bills move off the Senate floor. So they're still there. There's still a lot of questions by senators being asked, a lot of meetings I know with county commissioners and CMH directors trying to understand this really, really complex system. And so really, our message last week, and will continue to be, that there's a lot of misinformation going around right now, and ultimately this shift really does hinder our ability to coordinate locally, to develop and manage really good systems for responding to our county commissioners' constituency. And so keep doing what you're doing. We are reiterating all of the county resolutions that we've seen put forward. We have well over half of our counties now that have submitted resolutions in opposition to these bills. A lot of action through our advocacy system, and direct reach out. I know I've had members call last week saying they're talking to their senators, texting their senators. So thank you for all you're doing. It really, really is helping, and just continue to, push that message. And if you need anything from MAC, please let us know. We have a ton of information on our website. But always feel free to reach out directly, because I don't think this is going away just because it was something we were, worried about last week, it's not going to go away just because they didn't get a vote taken, right? It's something that the Senate Majority Leader will continue to push. So we will definitely need voices at the county level.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks everyone for your work on that. It's very helpful when we all work together as a team, and it's definitely your voices are being heard at the legislative level. So that's helpful. Thank you. Deena, we've got an update on a couple pieces of legislation that we talked about last week that have made some movement. One, the pension supplemental that would help some entities that have some pension issues, and also the veteran property tax exemption reimbursement bill. Can you give us an update on both of those, please?
Yeah, absolutely. So we talked last week about the pension supplemental that was up the week before in House Appropriations Committee. So this is House Bill 5054. Representative Albert is pushing this legislation, and basically it allocates about $1.5 billion toward unfunded pension liabilities. It would be a grant program. Let me just say this. It passed out of the House last week. It is now in the Senate. The Senate has not indicated whether or not they're going to take it up, or if there is an agreement with the Senate or the governor's office on this legislation. You know, we're dealing with an unprecedented amount of money right now at the state level, either through ARPA funds or general fund surplus dollars. And the legislature's working on appropriating all of it. Well, this particular supplemental budget bill is one of the issues that Representative Albert has been working on since he started in the legislature. And his concern is all of those pensions out there that are in underfunded status. So he put forth this bill that would create a $900 million grant program for all of those local units that are under 60% funded in their pension obligations, not OPEB, but pension obligations. This would include cities, villages, townships, counties, and road commissions. From our perspective, you know, that $900 million pot is going to be great for your local units of government, maybe even some of your road commissions that can apply for it. But as it stands now, there's only about 4 counties in the state that are teetering right around that 60% in their underfunded pension status. There's a second pot of money, because I said it was 1.5 billion. So that was a $900 million grant pot. There's another pot of money that is $250 million. And in that $250 million, you would be eligible if you were 60% or more funded in your pension obligations. So they do want to reward those that, you know, have really made up their payments if they possibly can. No more than $12 million per applicant would be allocated. So there's a cap on that one. There's a cap on the 900 million too, but that's $100 million, which is a crazy amount of money. Anyway, so the second pot of money would be for those who are over 60% funded. Now there's going to be strings attached. You can't enhance your benefits that you're currently offering. You have to put it towards your pension obligations. If you have no outstanding pension obligations, you're over 100% funded, then you can put it toward any other debt obligation that you have. You have to assume their rates of return. You have to pre-fund any OPEB benefits. Let's see, what am I missing? Oh, and then there was money in there for shoring up the state police pension system too. So that's the other 250 million. Like I said, don't know if it's going to go anywhere yet. Negotiations are happening. I think that what they're going to focus on right now is the water supplemental. They've been saying that though for 4 months, so we'll see if that actually happens. But word is that they're going to try and get the water supplemental done before they finish any other ones. Veterans personal property tax or veterans property tax exemption. Sorry, I deal with too many different kinds of taxes. Get confused. That's for your 100% disabled veterans. As you know, local units of government have had to absorb that loss since it was enacted. And it's millions and millions of dollars across the state, depending on where you are. And as of now, we haven't been able to get any kind of reimbursement from the state for those losses. But Senate Bill 783 and 784, sponsored by Senator John Bumstead, were up in Senate Finance Committee last week for the second time. Those bills would actually refund local units of government for those losses. It would be a refundable income tax credit on behalf of the veteran payable to the local unit. This would be not really an appropriation, even though the department has to be sent out. It kind of goes to the Income Tax Act, which makes sure that the money is there all the time, and would be a much better method for us. Doesn't change anything for the veteran. The veteran would still have to go in on an annual basis and file a form to get the exemption, but that form would change just a little bit, and it would allow the local unit to submit it to Treasury and get a reimbursement. So we were quite pleased with that. It has passed out of Senate Finance Committee and now sits on the Senate floor. Just a word of caution though, there are several different proposals out there to reimburse you for your veterans property tax losses. And this one is actually our preferred method. The other two don't really work or get you quite the reimbursement that you want.
Yeah, it's good to note that, Deena. Thanks for highlighting that. That is important when there's a lot of different things trying to do the same thing. You want to reiterate those Bumstead bills for everyone again?
783 and 784.
Great, thank you. Okay, moving back to Meghann. Meghann, it looks like there's some legislation that would, kind of be a significant change in the way we fund secondary road patrol. Obviously, COVID changed a lot of things, and I think one thing we saw was when there's not a lot of people driving, it's tough to write citations, and when you're not writing citations, it's tough to fund secondary road patrol. Can you talk a little bit about what those changes what changes are being proposed?
Yeah, absolutely. So our secondary road patrol or deputies, they get funding, they have support, obviously, from some county budgets because they've had to go and ask for more money from some county commissions, but it also receives funding through a $10 assessment for moving violations. So you get a ticket, $10 of that ticket goes into our secondary road patrol fund at the state. To your point, Steve, yes, COVID had a huge impact on that, but even before, really, we saw revenue, really start to drop off as early as 2017, and the state's been asked by our partners at the Sheriff's Association and MAC to help bolster that fund, to put in some more general fund each year. And so just last year, the state legislature they put in $4 million, but as we all know, that's just a really difficult situation to be in year after year, where we're just having to go and ask for one-time monies to help fund this program. And so the idea behind the legislation that Representative Mueller, Representative Dave Martin, and Representative Tommy Brand have introduced through House Bills 5732, 5772, and 5773 would really to be a more sustainable fund source through liquor taxes. So right now there's approximately 170 million that goes towards the liquor taxes that we collect as a state, and 1/3 of that goes towards the general fund. So really all the bills would do is take away that $10 assessment going to the secondary road patrol and replace that with that more stable source, and requiring 15 million out of that tax that's collected to go directly towards our secondary road patrol deputies. So it's a much more sustainable source. It kind of gets that conflict of interest out, where, oh, I'll give you a ticket and then it's going to go back into my pot to fund the system. So I think it's a good long-term solution. We are certainly supportive of that effort. The Sheriff's Association has been working at this a long time and keeping us up to date with the progress that they've been making. And I think now with the legislators that we have behind it, I think there's a good chance in getting it done. They had a committee on it last week, really just introduced the idea to the House Government Operations Committee that Representative Mike Mueller chairs. Representative Mueller was actually a former deputy himself in Livingston and Washtenaw County, so he definitely gets this issue and has been a real champion, as well as Representative Brand and Martin. So I don't expect a vote this week. but hopefully next week or fairly soon here, we'll get a vote in committee and see that move through the process. So we're really appreciative of the bill sponsors and the Sheriff's Association that's done a lot of the legwork on, finding these different fund sources and keeping us clued in on it.
Yeah, and it looks like some of the bill analysis was posted in the chat there. So if you want to read up on that, there's some information there. Meghann, was there any opposition voiced to that change?
No, there's no opposition at this point. I think, the real question is earmarking revenue and how the legislature feels about earmarking revenue out of that liquor tax. But it's a pretty small amount in the grand scheme of things that comes in for that revenue source. And it kind of makes sense, right? Our secondary road patrol, they're out there, they're pulling over drunk drivers often. Hopefully not often, but it kind of makes sense, right? That would be a better fund source than maybe the actual citation revenue that would be going towards it.
Right. Again, if you have any questions, feel free to type them in chat. I want to change gears a little bit to something I know that you guys have been thinking a lot about, and I've been thinking a lot about. In a couple weeks, something special is going to be happening here in Lansing. We've got a great conference coming up. We've got great attendees, and just to highlight a couple of things that I've been thinking about, we've got the governor coming to speak. We've got Larry Johnson from NACO. But Deena, tell me about what you've been thinking about. What are some of the breakout sessions that you've really been like, you can barely continue?
So excited about?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm a tax person. It's not all that exciting, but I'm excited. We're going to get a couple of them. We'll get an overview of the Headley Amendment. Actually, we need to understand it. It was passed in 1978, but it's might be a little geeky, but I appreciate, understanding the ins and outs of it, the tax limitations.
I still get confused by Headley to this day. So that's a good one.
Yeah, it'll be a good refresher course for anybody who's done it before. The one I think I'm really looking forward to is the one on mobility and electric vehicle build out infrastructure. We're paying over $4 a gallon for gas right now. I think probably everyone is considering an electric vehicle at this point. But we're going to have a presentation. SEMCOG is going to come in, Consumers Energy is going to come in, and they're going to talk about the infrastructure necessary and their build out to deal with electric vehicles. And I think that one's going to be pretty interesting.
Yeah, well, you're seeing that a lot of changes already with, pickup trucks now becoming very popular. I saw a commercial this weekend for a new Cadillac that looked very, very good looking car. It's a fully electric vehicle. So obviously something top of mind.
And there's also one really good one, and I know Megan's going to jump in here in a minute, but it's also how to engage and attract employees. What do you got to do? I think we hear that from our counties all the time. They can't hire anybody. They have a crazy number of vacancies. So hopefully this breakout session will be, engaging enough that gets people thinking about what they can do.
Yeah, you often hear about it from the private business side of having employee issues, hiring, retaining talent, that sort of thing. But it's definitely an issue in the public sector as well as county level. When you start looking at open positions across the state in our counties, it's a huge problem. So that's a good one to highlight. And I know Meghann has some thoughts on this. She was actually texting me about it on Saturday night. I'm like, Meghann, let it go. It's Saturday night, go have a cocktail. But no, she was texting me about the conference. So Meghann, go ahead.
Wow, way to call me out and show how boring my life is. I have nothing better to do on a Saturday night. But no, I am looking forward to this conference. A couple topics that are close to me and the work I do here. Really with trial court funding, we have Mike Bosonic from Monroe County. He's the Monroe County administrator. He's going to come in and talk about his work with the Trial Court Funding Commission. We've heard this before. This started back in 2019. That commission started. COVID had a lot of delays to some legislative changes that we've been trying to push, but timing is pretty critical here. There's another court case before the Supreme Court really questioning the ability for trial courts to impose those court costs on defendants and whether or not it leaves those judges in a position where they're not impartial in their decision making. And so if it's ruled unconstitutional, what are we going to do? That's a 20% of our entire court funding or 20% that would be basically not allowed of dollars that go toward our court system right now. And so that's pretty significant, by $200 to $300 million. And so then we also have Representative Leitner that's going to be in that session to talk about what the legislature can do and what she's been working on to kind of come up with a plan B. If this all comes to the courts and it's ruled unconstitutional, what's the state going to do to help support counties in our local courts? So I think it'll be really interesting. I think it's really, really timely this year. It's been timely every year, but more than ever. So I'm really looking forward to that one.
Good. Well, just as a reminder to everyone, registration's open through the 15th to the 15th of March. So we still got about 8 days to get registered. Again, we're looking forward to a great conference, got some great speakers, great breakouts. Looking forward to seeing everyone again. We did have our annual conference in person last year, but we're back in Lansing for the first time in a while. We'll be having a legislative reception on, I believe, Tuesday night that everyone will be invited to. We're inviting the legislature over so you can see some of your representatives here in Lansing. So great. We're looking forward to that. Looks like we do have a question here. Not a legislative issue, but we do know what is happening with the department. But do we know what is happening with the Department of Rural Development that the governor announced a few months ago? Is it likely to be at all helpful to rural areas? That's from Tracy up in Clare. Deena, Meghann, either you want to field that?
I'm not too familiar, but I would just say, we can look into it. But anytime the governor announces a new department or a new branch, it also is, even if it's developed, it might not have staff for it yet, right? Because those things need to be appropriated by the legislature, and we're working through that budget process. So yeah, there might be a label, there might be an office, but whether or not there's actually people to support and run that office are dependent on the budget, which we're in the midst of here. That's all I would comment on that. But Deena, you might have more.
Yeah, no, I mean, I agree with you, and I don't know if she's actually got it staffed up yet or not. I do know that there was an effort underway for the past couple of years to really create a rural development office. And I think it started in the Upper Peninsula, where they were really trying to focus on how do we develop our economy. And I think that finally took hold, and the governor decided she was going to create this office. Now, whether or not, like Meghann said, is it staffed or funded yet, we're not sure, but we can look into it for you, Tracy. I do see you asked another question about bonds on unfunded pensions that, that you had bonded for your pension obligations, and now would you be eligible for these payments? The legislation doesn't say anything about those that have bonded for their obligations. So I will tell you that although that $900 million pot is not likely to be available to you, if this all does go through, that $250 million pot would be. Yeah, so I would apply for that.
And I apologize. The original question was from the Gratiot Tracy, not Claire Tracy. So I had a little mix up there. So I apologize for that. You got a couple counties south there.
Sorry. I was thinking they were both the same person. Sorry. I didn't look either.
Both are county administrators. Both are named Tracy. One's from Clare, one's from Gratiot. So
okay.
Although both questions were from me, only to confuse things a little bit more for you. But,
thanks. Appreciate that.
All right. Any other questions before we close things out? We'll give it a few minutes here. If anyone wants to type in here, if you just want to chime in, feel free to just chime in as well. I'll also give Derek time to correct me if I made any mistakes on anything that I said so far.
You're batting 1,000.
There we go. It's a Monday. All right. Well, while we're just waiting to see if anyone chimes in, Deena, Meghann, anything you want to add?
Not too much.
I just want to say, I'm going to say Meghann's done an excellent job in working with the coalition and combating these mental health bills. It's been, a significant amount of effort. And so I think your outreach to our members and your inspiration to get them to reach out to their legislators has been fantastic. It really has. And the fact that you've held it off this long is pretty impressive. So kudos to you for that.
Thanks. We still have 9 months to go, 8 months to go in the year.
I I know, but it's been a great effort.
And Bud appreciates you working on Saturday nights too. So I love how Bud sneaks in, not as Bud Norman, but just as Branch County. Like he
Yeah, we
doesn't.
know it's you, bud.
Yeah, we know. It's like he doesn't think we know what's going on over there. All right. Well, thanks everyone. Have a great week. We'll talk to you next week.
Take care.
I
Thank you for listening to today's episode of Podcast 83, brought to you in part by Comcast, bringing the power of the internet into Michigan homes and businesses.